Hello and welcome everybody to the fourth ever episode of Reconsider This AoE 2. And I am Mystic Thing here with Mystic Being, and today's episode will be on castles.
Yes, castles and castle placement.
Castles and castle placement, correct.
Yes. So, we were having a discussion before we decided to choose this topic. And personally, I was thinking, well, what can we talk about castles? And I think you brought up a good point. And would you like to share with us?
Yeah, of course. So I actually came to Mystic before we started shooting this episode. I was like, yo, I know what the next episode is going to be about, castles. And he was like, oh, okay.
I was a bit skeptic.
And I was like, listen, remember that one game where this green guy came and just completely wrecked us using like was it not 33 castles?
At the end of the game, in the statistics, I believe it said he had 33 odd castles. Now, that wasn't that he lost any castles, because he didn't lose any castles. It was 33 castles.
I remember we weren't doing particularly good in that game. It was a nomad game.
No, but I think that was us coming back to the game after quite a while of not playing. And so, we didn't do the greatest.
It was our DE exploration. It was one of our first DE games, I think.
I can't recall, but I just know I really sucked. But anyway.
Yeah, well, we were unanimous with that. But anyways, so man had a lot of castles, right? Or lady. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt, even though highly unlikely, but maybe if it is the odd lady playing Age of Empires, man or lady had a lot of castles, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of it, we were just like, okay, we lost, but what is this with all these castles and stuff? Like, what's going on with the castles? And I came to the conclusion after that, because after we play games like that, usually revelation comes to me, and I'm just like, okay.
Oh yes, yeah, you guys, you have to understand something. You don't know how many games where we play up against, who knows, ballista elephants or Kipchaks or a huge weird rush, I don't know, a TC drop or something like that. And Mystic Thing comes back to me and says, nope, I'm only going ballistas.
Yeah, that's it.
Just a full-on strategy. I'm going walls, nothing else. I'm just going halberdiers, nothing else.
That's how I rock. Rock, and it's not a good thing. So that's I think what
it keeps it interesting.
It does. I think what led to the last episode was particularly that. I mean, the fact that I go so much stuff, and then at the end of it, our YOLO drops until we start rushing with Feudal Age rushes, and then our YOLO goes back up, and then I'm like, okay, I'm so bored of rushing.
Everything comes back to that. Yes, it's a cycle. It's a deadly cycle.
It is a cycle. It's a cycle of death of YOLO. But we fall weak to it every time, because I think we play a lot of games and we get bored. I mean, I don't know about you, but I definitely get bored and I want to try some outside the box strategies. So, I look and I'm like, okay, yep, Karambit Warriors sounds good. So that's what. But going back, I did to this game, a lot of castles, and I was just fascinated. I said, why not go Franks? And I did the next game.
Oh yes.
And just try.
Yeah.
Lots of and you know what? I think wasn't that the next game that was that the ballista game?
That was the ballista game, yes.
Okay, so now we know the sequence.
I give you some credit to that game and those castles. I don't know. I wasn't paying too much attention to your base and your army, as I think you had crossbows or something like that, or throwing axemen, something. But I remember that you had quite a couple castles, and they were pretty effective at what they were doing. But the problem was he had ballistas and paladins, and we only had...
Yeah, he had unit composition. We just had buildings. We didn't have an army. But you know what? Going into that game, though, I did tell myself this, because this is a tried and tested thing. Like, I go all in with something. It always fails. Like, that's a tried and tested thing. So I told myself, I know I'm going to fall into this mistake again with Franks going full out castles. So I told Mystic, I was like, do not, be scared, because...
Don't be scared yet.
Worry not, my friend, for I will make army in Feudal Age, I think. And I think it was... Did I not make
No,
army?
we got rushed. You did. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did. So my goal was this. I'll do what that guy did, except he didn't just do it out of the blue. he kind of just was doing stuff, and then I think he started placing castles. So that was my goal too. But we did fail because ultimately it was I don't know why did we fail, because we got rushed early, I think, and then we couldn't recover as good as them, I think.
Yeah.
Probably that was it.
You know,
but
blame it on the rush. Yeah.
Blame it on
not our playing. No, we're playing quite well, and
we were experts, casually doing our thing.
Yes.
Terrible map. No wall, unwallable map, and
yeah, definitely, it was not our fault at all. Yeah.
Nope,
if you guys can't pick up on the sarcasm, I feel that.
But yeah, in any case, I do feel like, so here's my argument with castles. So I am the one who brought this topic. I think that we kind of don't place. I mean, I don't think 33 is necessarily good. I think that's a bit excessive. But I feel like
most games don't even have enough, stone for that. So
that's true.
It's a mute point.
I do feel like castles are very, unless you're Imperial Age and you're at that stage where you don't have an army, the enemy has trebs, then it's kind of useless to build castles, obviously. I mean, that's a given. But at the same time, and consider this, if you have an army, why not just put a bunch of villagers on stone and just, casually start pooping castles all around the map? I think that's a really viable method of not only gaining control, but how hard it is, like how intimidating sometimes certain castles are in specific locations. If defended properly, it can be a huge demotivating factor for the enemy to try and take down those castles.
So then I have a question for you. Which would you prefer if you had a choice of one versus the other? Aggressive and forward castles to put pressure on the enemy and make them, react to that. But say that you had a smaller army or something like that. Or defensive castles in your base, making it really hard to defend, but you had a relatively large, outside force. Which one would you prefer? Would aggressive castles or defensive castles? Because, a game, there's so many different variables going on.
True.
And, you can't concentrate on just everything.
I think it depends on the context, but I do feel like if the enemy has trebs down, then I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think defensive castles might be better in that situation, my personal opinion, because your forward castle is not going to be very defended against trebs with a small force protecting it. Especially considering if you put it very forward, like next to the guy's base, he's probably going to have his trebs pretty defended with a castle of his own, and you're going to be pretty undefended overall. So in that situation, yes, I do feel like a defensive castle should be better, but take out the trebs. I feel like an offensive castle is probably going to be a better situation, because here's the other thing you can do with a castle. Other than firing arrows, you can pop out units, and a lot of unique units are pretty some civs, like Britons, will be pretty predictable, but a lot of times people might not be accounting for the special unique unit that you're going to produce, so it could catch them off guard. Like, imagine your Cumans. You have ballista elephants coming out.
I don't think that's the ballista.
Sorry, you get Khmer or Cumans, and you could have the Kipchaks to raid, or the ballista elephants to wreck.
to wreck. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to create a scenario for you. It's going to be, I want to see what your opinion is then. You and the enemy. It's a 1v1, for instance, or a 2v2. They're pretty similar. And you've got your enemy on your side, and you want to do something, and you've no interaction with them. You haven't rushed. You haven't done anything, but you now have the stone. You just clicked up to Castle Age. I don't know. Sorry, not clicked up. You actually got to Castle Age.
You hit Castle Age.
And you hit Castle Age. The enemy hit Castle Age as well. And you've got the stone. And you want to do something with that stone. You want to build a castle. Okay? You don't know what the enemy has. Enemy doesn't know what you have. You know where he is, though. You've seen his buildings and stuff. You've scouted him out. Yeah. But you want to place this castle down. Now, would you put an aggressive castle? Would you, say, YOLO and put that down and, I don't know, risk everything? Or would you put a defensive castle that, it just kind of sits there?
So I think I can have two answers to this question. A lame answer that says it depends on his ELO. And maybe he has an army back there that I have to be scared of, or blah blah blah, and make an answer based on that. But I think that the better answer is a more realistic answer, and the answer that I think we should debate in this video, generally speaking, because it's going to apply to most of the situations where you're not thinking a lot about external factors and just, are you going to place the castle front or back home? And I think I'd like to talk about that because I personally don't know. I mean, I think I'd probably try to get enough for two castles and go up. So like I'll get one front castle. I think I will definitely place it in the front. I mean, assuming, did your scenario give me a bit of an army to kind of protect the villagers or no?
A couple, maybe pump out one or two knights just to send to the front line. Maybe a couple scouts or a couple of archers. Nothing, groundbreaking or
I think I would go with
game-changing.
the forward. I think I'd go with the forward, and I would keep getting stone. So my goal would be, since we just hit castle and it's that time of the game, I'd try to put forward pressure on the person with the castles, I guess.
Okay.
I'd go with that. What about you? What would you do?
I mean, personally, from all the games that we've played and all the games that you've castle rushed or I've castle rushed, it's generally a really safe bet to put an upper hand over your opponent. And usually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we do it, we generally actually end up having an advantageous situation, unless
more times than not. More times than not, I would say. Yeah.
Unless
there are a few occasions where you get denied.
Yeah, a couple
like
onagers.
90% or something.
I think onagers and archers would be like the death of you, and also bad castle placement. So if you're just gonna put it at the front of his base, no sneakiness or whatever, then yeah, you kind of deserve your castle not to be going up. But if you put it like on a wood line or kind of on the side, but it does a lot of damage and it's a presence and so he has to deal with it, that takes up a lot of his brain power. And personally, I think that, if that happened to me, I would be in full retreat mode. Not full retreat mode, but, full, what is it called?
Defensive.
Fire suppression.
Yeah.
Defensive stance. I wouldn't be thinking about attacking him. I'd be thinking of how the heck can I save myself from this.
That's the human instinct. It probably would be the best at that point to attack the opponent as well.
Yes,
because kind of to counter something like that is probably just to go and bite him back.
Exactly. You don't know what he's built in his base. He could have the crappiest base.
Yeah, it could be like
Earth.
a paper. It would be made of paper. You could just set it on fire. So
he might be, committing his entire game plan to this one rush, and I think that could be good in certain situations. But I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of a conservative guy when it comes to rushing. I like to rush, but I don't like to go full in. Because I don't have the skill to be able to micromanage and that kind of stuff properly to a level where it would make sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that's a great point you brought up. I think walling to, not walling, but castling to somewhere. But I think going back to your original question to just add another point, I think what I do realistically is what I do typically do this is I put an outpost around like the general area where I'm going to build a castle, so I can see what his vision. I can predict what his vision of the castle will be. So before he sees that I'm building some building with a lot of villagers that looks like a castle or could be a university.
Yeah, you never know.
Before he sees that, I kind of want to see what his vision is, so I can place a castle kind of strategically. Because if it's up in his nose, like if it's right there, then maybe he's gonna see it and he's going to be like, yeah, like I have to rush this down with everything I have, But maybe if you make it a little sneaky, perhaps like, what if here's a scenario. What if you put two castles, one not so much in his nose, but the other one in his nose? Or maybe a tower and a castle or something like that.
Well, I think that's a bit too much stone. Like
that's true.
That would hinder your economy a bit too much, I think.
That's true.
So, strive for one castle. So I think we can come to a conclusion here. Number one, it all comes down to the game. So if the enemy has onagers or he has any ranged units, it's highly unlikely that your castle is going to go up unless it's a complete sneak. or he's just not that great and he can't manage to send, his army. Like he's maybe rushing the other enemy, or his army is out in the middle of the map or something like that.
Yep.
Then you might be lucky. So it comes down to game sense and scouting and stuff like that. It also comes down to your skills. Can you quick wall your villagers around the base? Because if he has a couple scouts, that that basically you
have
the whole thing.
You have to be able to. That's why knights aren't as deadly to forward castles, because you got to be smart with your forward castle placements. You got to be able to put a bunch of buildings and quick wall, like a bunch of at least just houses or something like that, or a market that just gives you that room to build the castle essentially. And I'd recommend also, just if you are going to put something up, just put like a university up so you can get murder holes as well while you're at it, because you probably need it if you're going to go with the forward castle.
That's a controversial opinion.
It's the absolute debate face-off time. Ready, set, face-off.
Yeah, most pros don't really think murder holes is a necessary tech.
The debate has ended.
It depends. If you got extra resources, it doesn't hurt. But obviously, you don't want to put your castle up and not have any resources to pump out units. Otherwise, he's just going to send a ram in and mess you up. So you got to watch out for that. But
my reasoning with murder holes is generally if he has melee units, it's very easy to rush castles down. So that'd be knights or infantry. But yeah, if he's going for something like archers or range stuff anyways, it's probably not good to get murder. It's not gonna that's just unnecessary at that point. But yeah, controversial. Good for you pointing that out, because I personally I didn't know that they had that opinion. I guess it makes sense. But I think ultimately though, outposts are gonna win you that castle placement. Generally speaking, it's very good to have vision around. Just also, if you are building that castle and you do see something approaching, you'll be able to react to it so much faster. That extra few seconds will give you that time to quick wall around your castle, so you don't have to do it last minute. Or if you see an onager and your castle is 5%, maybe just pull out of that area and just go somewhere else or something like that. So that maybe like one or two outposts up front of the castle toward the enemy base will give you some vision of what's going on, and I think that's very important, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we nailed it on the head.
I think so too. So on your opinion though, in your opinion, would you think that forward castles are a viable strategy in Castle Age, or do you think it falls back compared to other strategies, generally speaking?
I think it falls back most strategies. Sorry.
I agree.
I don't think it's something that you could do every game. I don't think you could pull it off every game, even when you do it. And I also think that there's a lot of factors. So there's an inherent risk to everything. Yes, there's an inherent risk to everything, but the castle drop has a much higher inherent risk. But if you can pull it off, generally you will be in a position to, not steamroll the opponent, but definitely win the game.
Assert the dominance, definitely.
Yes.
Over the opponent. Yeah, that's very very true. My motivation for this game was that 33 castle for this episode was the 33 castle dude or lady, and I think personally that's a late game thing. So just so we also touch on the late game. So we covered Castle Age castles. I guess our conclusion is it's not as viable as other strategies. But what about late game Mystic? Do you think people should invest more resources into stone? More villagers into mining stone so that they can get more castles up or something of that sort? Or, should they have maybe like 5 passively working throughout, and then whenever they have the resources, pop out more castles? What are your thoughts on that, generally speaking? Do you think Imperial Age castles they're definitely more viable, I think, than Castle Age, like castle strategy or something of that sort?
Yeah. See, I look at it like this. If you can pump up a couple of castles in your base, that means that number one, your villagers are protected and they have somewhere to run into if the enemy raids. But it also defends against raids and makes people not, like, who wants to send their hussars or whatever into a combination of like 2 castles plus a TC fire. Like no one
Yeah,
wants to do that. It hurts
absolutely.
your soul. Even if you might
It
kill a
does.
couple of villagers, it's not a good place to be raiding. So if you can use your castles as a substitute for a military in the back of your base, and use your military to apply pressure on the enemy, then I really think that castles, defensive castles in your base are a really good strategy. Personally, in Imperial Age, I don't really use castles I use it to kind of solidify a position. So I'll put down a castle, I'll put down a couple stables and barracks or archery ranges, whatever, around there, and I'll, make sure I have some siege, at least a trebuchet or something, to attack enemy trebuchets. But I'll use it kind of as a position kind of fort, I mean, as a castle, basically, rather than a tool, rather than a unit. You could consider the castle as a unit, or you could consider it as a kind of base or something.
Yeah.
I generally consider it as a base at Imperial Age.
At Imperial Age, that's very
Castle
true.
Age.
In Castle,
I've already made my opinion clear, but
yeah, 100%. I agree with you. And I do feel though that Imperial Age, generally forward castles are only a good idea if you have a really big military that's backing it up, and you pointed out you want to take over some land and solidify your position in that land. Otherwise, I'm not an advocate for putting a lot of very aggressive castles in the enemy base in Imperial Age. I do feel like unless they're in a weak position, it shouldn't be attempted at all, because I think it can be very easily biting you.
You could send I don't know,
back.
5, 6 villagers. You send them up. It takes brain power. You're thinking about this. You're worrying about it.
Nah, it's not.
You invest the villagers. You invest the army. You invest the stone, and then it could all crumble down.
It is perfect, as you pointed out, in my opinion. Back home, just have the castles back home.
Yeah.
And I think we should talk about a little bit of the placement and positioning of the castles. I think they should be placed. Like, obviously, if you have a TC and farms next to it, place the castle somewhere around there, and somewhere around where areas that you have a lot of villagers and such, but not open areas that can be easily trapped down, I guess. But more within your city. Incorporate the castle within the city, and that will make it your base pretty unraidable, generally speaking. So,
and I think in late games, one of the biggest contributors, if it's a stalemate kind of, to you losing the game, and to you losing motivation, to you losing hope, to basically losing the game, is getting raided and losing all your villagers and dropping in food. You still have an army, you might have some gold and wood, but you got raided, and you're just too focused on that raid. If you could just click the town bell, I know, no, Imperial Age, you basically click the town bell. There's no point in microing at that point. Maybe there is, but
if you're getting completely, steamrolled in your base,
yeah. So
but
you could just click the town bell.
In one area, I guess you could still garrison it,
and just be confident that your base is not going to be completely destroyed, and continue your attack on the front. Exactly.
And you'll clean up his army in seconds, and you can go back and unring the bell, immediately, pretty much. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So I guess we can conclude from and as well. One other thing I have to add is late game, when it's a stalemate or something like that. If the guy has castles, I don't go in. I don't go in raiding, or like that's to me, those
true.
Castles are checkpoints.
Yep.
They're like, if this is a video game with 10 levels and there's 10
you
castles,
need trebs first, basically.
Yeah. So you need the trebs. And it's gonna take some time for you to, unless you're a professional player and you do it all, you've done this 1,000 times and whatever. But if you're not, if you're, I guess, beginner to intermediate or around intermediate level, it's not gonna be as easy for you to just take the trebs and go and then walk in the town. But if he has, let's say, like 6 castles in the base, you might say excessive, but is it effective? I think 100% yes. Imagine those castles having, all the blacks getting impacted by the blacksmith upgrades that you got on the archers, like all the way to bracer, and then on top of that, getting hoardings, so they're very, tanky as well. It's gonna be hard to take down. They're gonna have a lot of range. They're gonna have a lot of attack, and then if he garrisons and uses them wisely, you will definitely need the trebs. But you're gonna have to keep trebbing down more and more and more. It's gonna be tough. You're gonna need. It's not gonna be like you can throw a bunch of hussars in there. It's gonna be like, no. You need a full in. Yeah, you need a full in invasion with actual siege, not just any units to go in and no, it won't do it. And that's the other thing. Weak units can't raid anywhere with castles. You can't even get past it.
Yep.
You can't get past the castle.
Useless.
Useless. Absolutely useless.
Hussars, not that useless, but still relatively, ineffective.
Yeah.
When I know we had an episode on Hussars and how awesome they are. Yes, they are awesome. But obviously not in every situation, especially if you have the enemy is defending with castles and a bunch of halberdiers, you are completely screwed. Don't even try that. Try and use your hussars somewhere else on the map. Don't take castle fire and pikes at the same time. That's just not a good combination.
Yeah. So I mean, we're looking at a base in the Imperial Age that's been walled with no holes, and even if there are holes, you run into any part of the base, you run into a castle, and so It's a really big it really like just makes you, it's like, oh my god, I gotta go through this now. And it's it's what makes or breaks your push, I think. Does he have castles? If he does, then I need siege. I need to prepare to actually take him down. And siege doesn't magically just take the castle down in one hit. It's a process. It takes time, and it gives him time to react as well. So at least you may say, well, what's the point of building castles in Imperial Age if he's going to take it down with siege? Well, it buys you time, and that's very vital. In Imperial Age, in the middle of a stalemate, you're trebbing down his castle. He can pop out, a lot of units from existing or new production buildings, and rush you down and stuff. So I think late game Imperial Age, forward castles shouldn't be a thing, but definitely I
think forward castles with some army is a good thing. It means you're expanding your base, whatever.
Where there isn't, like, not next to the enemy base.
Yes,
I mean.
agreed.
Unless if you're crushing, then sure, like you're gonna go and like take over resources there and stuff. Anyways, you're gonna land there. Sure, castle. But otherwise, I mean, forward castles in areas that are unoccupied, yes, but forward castles, and what I meant by that was super aggressive castles in Imperial Age, no.
In Castle Age, you could consider the castle, I mean, it doesn't move, obviously, but you could consider the castle one of the strongest units. In Imperial Age, you start getting where a couple of paladins can take it down, Tarkins, any siege, whatever. So it can't just stand alone by itself. It has its weak points. In Castle Age, though, the weak points are very few. It's either a huge amount of knights, a couple of rams, or a lot of infantry. So,
and chances are you can pop something out of the castle that'll deal with the rams. You can pop something out. You can have an army that backs up the castle, something minor or whatever. And I'm gonna make this controversial claim.
Okay, let's hear it.
Even if he's got rams, if you keep a few villagers around, villagers are decent against rams. It'll buy you time to build a proper army against whatever other rams he might be throwing at you. But momentarily, they will take the ram down, and it'll be fine.
Yes, I know your love for villagers fighting. Yes, I know.
Yes. And it might be good to pick up sappers and try to raid the enemy village while you're at it too.
I disagree with that point.
Okay.
Strongly, extremely strongly. Unless you're the Vilcher, Viper.
Vilcher?
Yeah, no.
Unless you're a random civil.
Yeah. Don't try it. Please don't try it at home.
Don't try that. No, do not try this at home. We've been talking for about half an hour. Mystic, do you have any other things to add on top of the castles, or below, under, beside, to the right, left, behind, front?
Nothing to
castle.
add.
Anything
I think this episode has made me a bit more motivated in our next games to try out a castle rush or experiment a bit more with the castle unit, I'll call it, in Castle Age, and definitely the castle fortification in Imperial Age.
Maybe a future episode we can do on outposts. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think I was thinking about that when you were talking about the outposts. I was thinking about all the games where we have just been, top of our game because of those outposts.
I never see outposts, and it would, I was.
But I definitely think we should leave that for another conversation.
Yeah. But I was talking to about how we made this podcast like 3 years ago, and we called it Reconsider This. But I said, eventually there's gonna be things we're not gonna be able to reconsider everything. It will run out of things to reconsider, so we could just move on with the regular stuff. But I think Outposts really matches the Reconsider This title.
Oh yes.
I never see an. I don't remember the last time I ever saw an outpost. I don't think anyone has built an outpost that I've seen in the past like 10, 20 games. I don't remember. Maybe because they're just so hard to see, but I don't run into them,
And I mean that's a positive. I mean if enemies have been building outposts and you haven't been noticing it, that's a good thing. I mean,
that's a good thing about
don't discredit that. But anyway, we really have to leave that for another episode. Otherwise, we're gonna
leave it on a cliffhanger for this one. Stay tuned for the Outpost episode to hear our opinions on the Outposts. Our very important expert advice. Absolute 5,000 ELO.
Advice.
Yes,
definitely.
Yep, 100%. So other than that, do we have anything else to add, Mystic, for castles? I think that's about it.
Nope.
We went with zero planning and we spoke for half an hour.
Amazing.
Perfection. Okay. Thank you for watching. Do leave in the comments below what episodes, topics you'd like to hear about in future episodes that we have coming. And for the moment being, I think other than that, you might as well just slap that like button and hit subscribe.
No, please don't. Edit that out. Please edit that out.
That's staying in. I'm sorry. That's staying in.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.